Okay, Mayuresh Joshi Johnson with his thoughts on the markets and the fundamentals. Mayuresh, good having you. Thanks for joining in. Before we get down to specifics and markets and investing, Mayuresh, I want to know if you track any of these names, because on news they all seem to be doing very, very well. One, Gillette, the numbers have come out spectacular. Balakrishna, exceptional set of numbers, the stock is up about 20%. Or Hindustan Construction Company with their arbitration award.
Afternoon, Neeraj. I think individually all these stocks have some things moving for them. So yes, exceptional set of numbers from Balakrishna Industries as I saw it. The only issue remains the sustenance of these numbers going forward, and specifically I think with the demonetization drive, the replacement markets is where the auto ancillaries might actually take a hit, and that is where the greater proportion of higher margins in their overall book comes from. Secondly, I think overall, I think one really needs to see into account how the overall volume growth will pan out generally for these sector players as well. So largely, again, I think good set of numbers. The stock is aptly reacted to those set of numbers. In terms of infrastructure company, probably getting their dues. I think if it comes around, I think a huge positive on their balance sheets, which have been probably languishing for a length of time over the past so many years. So it comes as a breather for them. But again, I think no specific recommendations, at least on all these counters. But again, I think they're reacting positively to all the news surrounding them at this point of time.
What do you make of the Maruti numbers, Mayuresh? People thought that the numbers, or the auto numbers thus far that have come out. I mean, Maruti, I remember, because the domestic numbers were very, very good and the exports weren't, and still they managed to surprise on the upside. What have you made of the auto sales so far?
Again, I think the larger expectation, Neeraj, is that the sluggishness might very well continue. I think though the numbers are not evidently stating that, at least at this point of time. But one really is expecting some slowdown to actually come through for the entire auto universe. Two-wheelers might get hit more than the four-wheelers, purely in terms of the price points that four-wheelers are priced at this point of time. But largely, again, I think the kind of leverage that Maruti can derive over the next 2 to 3 years is quite exceptional. I think the models that they've introduced so far have done brilliantly. So Brezza, Baleno have done exceptionally well, and again I think the kind of platforms that one really expects to come through over the next few quarters can be a game changer event for a company like Maruti. Second, I think the valuations had peaked off in terms of where the price points were and where he had corrected from. So I think even from an EPS perspective or an earnings perspective, the stock was looking richly valued. From a 12-month perspective, it has duly corrected. So my own sense is that within the four-wheeler space, if one really has a 2 to 3 year horizon, I think Maruti can really be one of the standout companies that can do well.
Okay, so that's the auto names. Mayuresh, the other question before we hit that break, and I'm talking about all that's happened today or since last afternoon. The offshore companies, exploration companies have gone through the roof. There is a bit of a relief rally out there. My question to you is, fundamentally, which one to your mind looks set for more? Not just because crude has done and therefore all stocks on the street which are linked should rally or should correct. Something that has a more fundamental reason to do that with the crude rally.
Now again, I think that is one perspective of looking at this, Neeraj. But again, secondly, let's have a look at the larger picture. I think if you look at the kind of movement that you've probably seen, both in terms of the Baltic Dry Index as well as the Tanker Index, I think that is giving a fillip to the rally that we're probably witnessing amongst these stocks. Secondly, I think even if you look at the core business dynamics, I think the kind of submersible vehicles that are expected to come through, the kind of additions that are expected to happen, I think are pretty large. So in terms of volume addition itself, they have a telling effect in terms of how the global trade pans out, in terms of core realizations panning out. Third, I think in terms of core realizations itself, both in terms of how the offshore vehicles basically move at this point of time, my own sense is that if you look at the rates, whether they be jack-up rates or whether you look at the submersibles, my own sense is that the rates are not going to improve drastically. So it's more sentimental in my opinion at this point of time. If the trade reverses sharply, I think the momentum in these stocks can be can be equally sharp as well. So I think I'm keeping my fingers crossed, quite neutral on this stocks at this point of time.
Need to cut across to the finance minister.
Major economy in the world, and I have no doubt that we will continue to do so. But the challenge for India is how do we look ahead as far as the country is concerned? And therefore some changes which are now taking place may look difficult challenges in the immediate context, but their potential for the future to bring about significant changes in the country is extremely important. And I do believe that two initiatives, and I must thank profusely the Honorable Chief Minister and his colleagues for being very supportive in both those initiatives. The recent currency changes, as also the proposed goods and services tax, would eventually benefit the whole country and certainly a state like Orissa. If you look at the long-term impact beyond 1 or 2 quarters, once these two decisions are effectively implemented, notwithstanding the painful process of their implementation itself, what would really be the impact of these decisions? As far as the goods and services tax is concerned, the whole country would be one big market. There would be a seamless flow of goods and services across the country. This itself would now entail a system where leakages would be blocked, a far more efficient tax system of indirect taxation would come into existence. And obviously over a period of time it not only helps in the growth process, but it also helps a consuming state like Odisha. Tax evasion would increasingly become extremely difficult because some limb of the transaction, from its very inception till the sale, the whole process of manufacture, the whole journey of a particular product will be captured somewhere on the IT backbone which is being developed for this purpose. Coupled with this, if more and more transactions and payments get digitized, you have a far cleaner economy, you have a far more bigger formal economy. The informal sectors would also tend to get formalized. You have all transactions captured within the banking system. The immediate impact on the banking system itself would be their capacity to lend and lend more, lend at more reasonable rates, support various social projects, infrastructure, industry, trade would be far higher than what it conventionally has been. The taxation basis itself would increase. And a cumulative effect of both those factors, the GST as also the currency move after the remonetization process is completed itself, would give state after state, and of course the country as a whole, a much bigger economic base, a much better and a bigger taxation base itself.
That's the finance minister speaking about the benefits of what demonetization and digitization will essentially do for the country at large at the Make in Odisha conclave. Okay, as we hit that break, 8209, just hovering around 8200, but the CNX mid-cap index, just before we hit that break, just want to mark the intraday of the CNX mid-cap index. That one is under serious pain point. Look at that, from the start, which is about 0.4% higher, to now 1% lower. Take a break, come back with more, talk about some active stocks with our experts. Mayuresh Joshi is also with us. Back at closing trades right here on ET now. Reliance Infra, LIC is opposing Reliance Infra's plan to demerge the power generation ops, and remember LIC has a large investment in Reliance Infra, and this would naturally bring about some bit of a reaction onto this. For a lot of companies, demerging and creating value, or supposedly creating value is a big thing. But LIC, which holds 12% stake in the company, is apparently opposing they plan to demerge the power generation operations. Mayuresh, it's a stock that's kind of it's stuck in the middle of nowhere. There are a lot of Reliance Infra, RB Infra, for example. There are companies like KNR Construction and a few others which have really done very well. Then there are ones like HCC and Punjulod which are coming out of the black, maybe getting some, coming out of the dead rather, getting some arbitration awards and therefore reacting positively, creating wealth. Somehow an IRB or Reliance Infra just not able to do anything, and now their plans for demerger of the power operations as well are being opposed by one of the largest shareholders.
Again, I think one really needs to constructively look at asset owners, the EPC guys, and as you mentioned, I think the third category where Punj and the others like HCC fall into place. As I mentioned earlier, I think any subsidy payouts, if it comes through, I think which was due for a long period of time, is going to have a healthy effect on their balance sheet. But within the other two players, my own sense is that the EPC players should benefit more because of the kind of order intakes that these people or players will be able to enjoy over the next 2 quarters. Secondly, I think the kind of margins that will probably come through within your orders will be far better. Now it all boils down to individual execution capabilities and their inherent balance sheet strength, which will probably drive earnings growth. But EPC generally as a theme, and KNR Constructions, as you rightly pointed out, is something that we continue to like. I think the working capital days are coming down significantly on a year-on-year basis. Debt equity absolutely minimal compared for other EPC players as well. Third, I think the earnings growth has been quite stupendous. I think the expectation still remains that it would maintain that trajectory going forward. But within the asset owners itself, I think one really needs to understand the kind of enterprise value that they are generating individually for their assets. FireB, for example, I think what happens with their INV, IT's portfolio specifically, and the listing thereof, I think is going to be extremely crucial. For Reliance Infra, again, I think what happens with the enterprise value for the road assets is going to be extremely crucial. So I think all these factors need to be taken into account. But I think EPC as a theme is something that I've liked. I'll continue to like that for the next 12 months, to say the least.
Just a fall there, Kunal, you want to take a quick chart check on Rel Infra? Is it worth a trade?
Yeah, I think on the daily charts it's forming a bearish engulfing, so maybe 466, 467 is where the previous low, yesterday's low was for Reliance Infra, and the key over here is that the longer term moving average, 50 and 200, they're having a bearish crossover today. So today's high would probably become one of the more important resistances from a short-term trading perspective for Reliance Infra, which I think is closer to 470, 485 approximately on spot level. So keeping that as a stop loss, traders can initiate a bearish trade on Reliance Infra, provided that it closes below this 467 mark where it's currently trading.
As a sharp knockdown coming in the stock, 2.5% lower at 467. LIC, as Mayuresh highlighted, holds nearly about 12% stake in Rel Infra. There are some technical indicators also coming in to show the stock's performance. And remember, Reliance Infra has done really well off late. In fact, from the start of the year to now, it's been a key performer. So in the context of that, this fall may seem very limiting, but the time-wise chart reflects that it's been adjusting higher for a while. Let's get an idea at 255 then, and I'll start off with you, Siddharth. What is it that you'd recommend?
Well, M&M is a shorting candidate for me. If you look at the stock, it has not been, performing even in the bounces. Just like I mentioned about Tata Motors, Tanvir, M&M is now on verge of, going below the support level of 1150, 1160 zone, and we are seeing some formation of short positions as well. You can create shorts in M&M at current levels. Target should be around 1100 or so. Stop loss can be kept around 1175.
Okay. By the way, I also want to get a chart check on Hindalco, but we'll do that in a bit. I think it's lost quite a bit of ground. Right now it's 255 ideas. CK Narayan, your top call at this hour.
Actually, I also have a consensus sell in Mahindra & Mahindra. I think that stock has been under considerable pressure. Every attempt to rally is seemingly fizzling out in possibly just a day. I have not seen that stock rally for 2-3 days, which is pretty normal actually when you see the kind of decline that it has had. But one-day rallies are clearly indicative of something endemically wrong in the stock, and therefore at the current level also I would suggest a short. I think substantially lower prices in the offing here. For traders, we can look at an immediate short-term support at about 1140, but I think position plays or swing trade plays here would also be, I think, handsomely paid off.
Siddharth, your top call? Or rather, Kunal, your top call, excuse me for that. Mahindra & Mahindra is a consensus call between Siddharth and CK Narayan. Kunal, what are you playing with?
Well, I'm going ahead with a buy on Dr. Reddy, Neeraj. I think it's a very interesting chart on the daily frame. There is a triangular pattern getting formed. The volumes yesterday were extremely convincing of the stock inching higher towards the breakout of this bullish chart pattern. Now, start of November, there was a bullish moving average crossover which happened on Dr. Reddy, and stock rose from 3100 to 3400. Post that, we've seen more or less a consolidation happening. Volumes have dropped, but I think over the last 1 or 2 trading sessions, we've seen volumes picking up substantially. So I believe that if the chart also breaks out of this triangular pattern breakout, volumes manage to remain higher for Dr. Reddy, the stock should head higher. Many of these pharma stocks have already risen with very strong momentum over the last 1 week or so, and Dr. Reddy could probably be one of the other pharma names which can trigger a short-term upside. So recommending a buy from current levels, would look out for a target of 33.85, stop loss at 31.35.
Okay, fair call. Stay on, gentlemen, lots more to speak about. Mayuresh, stay on as well. I want to discuss metals on the other side of this break. Somehow Hindalco, the last 4 or 5 days, hasn't had a really good run. It's down in today's session as well. So talk about that and more on the other side of this very, very quick break. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. You're still watching markets and closing trades at this hour. Let's just
do you like the movie Diya Zindagi? Tanveer?
We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the last half an hour of the markets, and we should be a little prim and proper. 3:10, and so it's 3:05. So let's go across to Vivek and get a quick perspective on the stock of the day. Vivek.
Absolutely. So, the stock we're talking about today is one of those stocks which is one of those companies very active in the tire segment. And, the stock was trending higher today morning on back of good results. But, after post the management commentary that has come in, and, once investors actually went ahead and digested the kind of information that the company has given the fact that, the company has seen very, very strong volume for this quarter, and also the company going ahead has given, quite a strong volume guidance. On the back of that, in the second half of the session, what has actually happened, the stock has surged and it has gone ahead and now hit the upper circuit. Let me take you through some of the technicals of how the stock has performed today. So today, if you're talking about the volumes almost 8 to 9 times the last 5-day average. Very, very strong volume seen on this particular stock. If you're looking at how the stock has performed, last 3 trading session up almost 28%. In the past 1 year itself, the stock is almost double, up almost 85%. And another positive for investors, the fact that company has, it's had a significant amount of debt, has gone ahead and repaid almost 220 crore worth of debt, and now has only around $125 million of debt remaining. So the company is on track to go ahead and achieve its debt repayment plans, as well as going ahead and achieving higher volumes.
Thanks a lot for that, Vivek. And there are some other factors about trade today as well with regards to Balakrishna. Now, CK Narayan probably foresaw this move, and he had given this call on Balakrishna a while earlier, I think yesterday or day before. Now, CK, your targets are probably a bit higher than this, and it's on a circuit, so probably will go up further. But for somebody who entered into the trade yesterday or day before when you gave the call, is it prudent to book some money or some profits maybe tomorrow when it opens up slightly higher, or today?
You see, the results I think have been pretty spectacular, and market's reception to that result has been pretty resounding. Stock has got pushed and got locked into upper circuit, which is 20% higher. My original target was about 1225, and this was when the price was about 990 or thereabouts. I think given the kind of results and the kind of reception that the market has given it, I would be inclined to revise my target upward to somewhere around 1375, 1380. So I really wouldn't rush in to sell it if it opens tomorrow, which doubtless it will. But I would say hold on till about maybe somewhere between 1325 to 1375. I think we should be seeing somewhere the stock price, reach those levels.
Okay, then that's Balakrishna, the view on that one. Siddharth Khemka, Head of Equity Research Wealth at Centrum Broking, is with us. And Siddharth, good afternoon. Thanks for joining in. Any thoughts on the tire companies and particularly Balkrishna, if you have it under your coverage? I think the numbers were good. People know that. The stock price is quite spectacular. What now?
Yeah, good afternoon, Neeraj. Thanks for having me here. As of now, we are not tracking actively the tire stocks, so I would not be able to comment on this stock.
Fair call. I appreciate that. But Balkrishna seems to be in a really, really sweet spot. Mayuresh, understand we have to let you go, but before we do that, a couple of questions to you. One is on what is it that you're telling people to do right now in terms of specific ideas or themes? Where can people invest money?
No, again, I think looking at the current demonetization thing which is happening in the economy, again, consumption-related themes are going to take a hit. What you've probably seen with telecom today is going to take sheen off in terms of how earnings will look over the next 2 quarters. So again, I think it's going to be more capex-led, and that to the public sector or the government-led capex. So I think anything to do with power, whether that be stocks like Power Grid, which I'm liking on every decline, which has no effect at all with what is happening in the economy in terms of demonetization, and where the capitalization story still remains intact, the regulated ROEs still remain extremely encouraging. I think the power transformer space, as I've been time and again mentioning, I think is something that can be looked at as well. Years of underperformance, finally I think getting over. You're probably seeing good orders coming through, the margins improving, the return on capital employed improving, and again the government schemes specifically directed towards this sector will ensure that the earnings momentum continues, specifically large cap pharma names, where my own belief is that the next couple of quarters, I think a whole host of issues related to remediation and what FDA had meted out over the past so many years, I think should largely start getting over. FY18 numbers on the lower base, as well as the kind of pipeline that they've got, should start looking encouraging. Selective large cap auto names, specifically the four-wheelers, look very, very interesting at this point of time. Auto ancillaries, I'll still wait for a quarter's results to see what kind of a volume degrowth and price degrowth patterns we witness there. And again, I think specifically on declines, one can also look at specific mid-cap counters, which are probably looking at the EPC business as a whole. So I think EPC as a theme, specifically the road guys, should benefit over the next few quarters as well.
Okay, Mayuresh, before we thank you, do you track the new kid on the block or the potential new kid on the block, that is Sheela Foam, the IPO which is open?
Unfortunately, Neeraj, I did not get the time to look at numbers, so I'm not tracking it.
Fair call. Okay, Mayuresh, leave it at that. Thanks so much for taking the time out and joining us and giving us that perspective. Okay, Siddharth, we may still draw a blank on this one as well, but by any chance, you guys at Centrum, have you looked at Sheela Foam? The IPO is subscribed now fully, but have you looked at it?
We did had a look at the IPO, and